My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Sammaz and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jan Faria and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paolini and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
Championship point number 3. Where are you going to go with this serve, Shelton? Down the tee, but you're going to miss it. Forehand return. Backhand from Shelton into the backhand of Taylor Fritz. Forehand now from Shelton is incredible, but Taylor Fritz defends it. Now it's on the forehand again. Taylor Fritz is fighting. There's going to be a smash here. Is this? It's going to land in? There is. There's going to be a... Oh, no, he's not going for the smash. He's going for the forehand. Now he comes into the net, but he's done it. Ben Shelton has won it incredibly. Falls to the floor more in exhaustion and relief than exultation. But what a final. What a win. Ben Shelton lifts the title. A 3-set win, and it was drama all the way. Out wide. Is this going to land in? It is. Forehand here for Fran Cerundolo. Backhand now. Fran Cerundolo again on the forehand. Backhand here from him. Fran Cerundolo, huge forehand. He's done it. He falls to the ground, Fran Cerundolo. He has won it and achieved, I'm sure, a boyhood dream. Look at his team. They are ecstatic. And understandably so, covered in clay, but also covered in glory in his hometown. Alex de Minaur in Rotterdam. 2 championship points for his first Rotterdam title. Felix, of course, has won this title in the past. De Minaur has been runner-up on a couple of occasions. Felix winning in 2022. Here we go. Where you going, De Minaur, with this serve? Good serve out wide. Felix can't deal with it. Arms outstretched. Alex de Minaur is the champion in Rotterdam. Congratulations to the Australian and his team. Felix Auger-Aliassime was just not at the races today.
Here we are. How do I follow that up? Shout out to John giving us those thrilling match point situations. And here we are today, ATP Weekly, recapping 3 tournaments. I'm joined by Fergus, Gavin. Fergus, how are we?
I'm good, thank you. How are you, Brenna?
I'm good. And
excellent.
I wanted to start by saying, these are some of my favorite weeks on tour. February specifically, it's a lot of the first matches for players after Australian Open. But more importantly, we got 3 tournaments, 3 different locations. We got different surfaces. So this week we're recapping Rotterdam and indoor hard, Dallas and indoor hard, and Buenos Aires and outdoor clay. So yeah, that's how you want to start because it is so exciting. Different services, different players. And it's just kind of like a fresh start after Australian Open. So
yeah,
let's dive right into it. We're going to start in Rotterdam where Alex de Minaur, he finally gets the title. It had been 3 years, the past 2 years being runner-ups. Anything to say about Alex de Minaur to start, and then we'll get into the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, just a chance for him to not face Sinner or Alcaraz in the final, right? Lost in 24 to Sinner, and then 25 lost to Alcaraz. And coming into the final, you kind of felt like he might as well be, considering who he was, the indoor prowess of his opponent. But, Alex has been so consistent all week. There have been a couple shouts on social media that he'll end the year world number 3. People saying that this guy is the most consistent man on tour outside of Alcaraz and Sinner. So this is kind of it's just a moment for him to savor. It was an 11th title. I believe it's his first. No, it won't be his first indoors. Might actually be his first indoors. I think actually. Yeah, as I say, the title and great to get over the line.
Exactly. And I think you bring up the big point, right? No Alcaraz, no Sinner. Last year it was Alcaraz in the final who had to overcome like a big test against Urkach to even get to that final. And then even in that final, it went 3 sets. ADM had his looks, but wasn't able to take Alcaraz down. Now you come into this tournament knowing that you've been a runner-up the previous 2 years, knowing you don't have to face Sinner and Alcaraz, and also being the 1 seed, having arguably the most favorable draw. And that, I think, paid dividends for him. It's kind of silly to say of if we're going back to the quarterfinals, you look at Botic, Humbert, ADM, and Felix. You think about the 3 tests, you would probably think that, Felix, maybe Humbert is going to be the biggest test, but no, it was actually Botic who took him 3 sets, and, a huge tiebreak that he had to win against a home favorite, obviously. But yeah, these conditions, they pose different threats, right? Like we talked about it at the beginning of the week when we were previewing Urkach and Bublik, because the surface, it's kind of changed over the years, and it felt like it was more of a consistent surface this year, being on that grittier side, a little bit slower, of kind of a flat shot that does get through the surface, but playing on the slower side, and that falls into Demon's hands, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Demon is, with his foot speed and his ability to cover all corners of the court, you feel as though you're trying to hit through, essentially a brick wall. His defensive ability is just shining through, especially in this final. Have the numbers here from Tennis Viz and from Tennis Data, but I've kind of showed Demon won 41% on steal points. So when he's on a defensive, he's in a defensive mode, he's stealing 41% of the points when Felix is in attack. And those numbers in Felix's previous 4 matches, he's been, winning 80%, 85, 90% of those points. But in this match, he only managed to win 59, which is a big dip.
Right. Yeah, and I felt like even through the match, like from the get-go, like ADM had Felix behind the baseline like a lot more than he's used to, especially in these indoor conditions. Like you think about the serve +1, just getting inside the baseline, being kind of more of the dictator, and it just didn't feel like Felix had it all going for him today. You think about, this week being a longer week, but I do think about like a little bit of an outlier when you kind of have a freebie in a semifinal against Bublik, who has never made it past the second round in Rotterdam. It was kind of a blessing to get here. He powers through Minaur one way or another. He was down a break in the third and was still able to prevail, but it felt like that was it, right? He gave all the gas, even on a Saturday semifinal, like he probably wasn't going to bring it. And that was true, right? 6-1.
Yeah.
And I felt like, okay, like Felix gets a little bit of a resurgence maybe in that 24 hours that he probably needed for this final, especially going against the Demon. But yeah, it wasn't all there for him today. It felt like Demon just kind of stepped on court with fire, right? He knew what he was going after, and he knew how he had to play. And I think Felix, mentally can either have that switch on or switch off. And not that it really switched off, but, come that second set, he took an MTO for, either the leg, the hip issue. You knew it was going to be a tough road uphill from him. So I think it's just like more of a shout out to ADM for understanding that even as a top seed in the draw, like you have to show up. He was up an early break against Stan, gave it back. You just through these trials and tribulations, like throughout a draw, when you're the number 1 seed, everyone's hunting you. So I think it's job well done to Minaur for coming through and making it happen on each of the days where it counted. But I mean, also have to give your flowers to FAA, right? Hell of a 2 weeks coming from Montpellier.
Yeah. The guy
go ahead.
guy obviously comes straight from Montpellier winning the title, and he kind of would. I'm just going to mention the switching conditions. Montpellier a lot quicker than Rotterdam. I think it was Medvedev who said at the start of the week, that the balls are being chewed up by how slow the court is, and it's very different, but it kind of still benefits Felix, right? That big serve +1, he's so good, and the confidence he has indoors is, above pretty much the entire tour, apart from maybe Yannick. So yeah, I'd say he has a better, prowess than Alcaraz on an indoor surface, even though Alcaraz won this title last year. And yeah, I mean, another great 2 weeks for FAA, but just wasn't at the races today, as John said earlier, and Demon just managed to, buckle down and when things got tough and kind of just find a way of peppering that backhand enough that it broke down.
Right. And that kind of brings me to my thought that I've been thinking about kind of throughout this week. But for me, FAA, Felix Auger-Aliassime, I think he is the second best indoor player in the world, right behind Yannick Sinner. Think back to the Paris-Bercy final in 25, went to a third set. It might have been second set tiebreak. Yeah. But regardless, like, this guy is just so difficult to beat indoors. It's so advantageous for him. Would you argue that statement, Fergus? Where do you see it? With Alcaraz, it's like, have we gotten enough of a taste? Because last year, Rotterdam, it feels like they slowed it down for him, and he does end up being victorious in Rotterdam. But historically, not a good indoor player, right? We look at even back to, what am I thinking? Is it Paris? Yeah, Paris-Bercy. He went down to
Paris record
to Nori. Yeah, just the Paris. And then I guess, to be fair, he did make it to the ATP finals. But yeah, one indoor title, Carlos Alcaraz. Yes, that's probably not the surface he plays on a lot, but yeah, talk to me about that.
It's an interesting one because it feels like the Rotterdam title is deceiving for Carlos's indoor record. Yes, it's good. Made the final in Turin, but losses to Humbert in 24. Yep. And Nori in 25 in Paris-Bercy. 23, I'm gonna skip. Did he even play? I'm gonna say that if he did, it wasn't a good run.
Right.
I just feel as though Felix just has the confidence. Felix plays more on indoor. Felix.
Right.
He signs himself up for. He signed himself up for Montpellier, wins the title, signs himself up for Rotterdam. This small window of indoor that we have in between Australia and then Indian Wells is a perfect chance for him to get minimum 250 points on the board. And, then he goes to, when after the US Open and Asia, he's won Basel 2 times and loves it in Paris, obviously made the final here last year. So I would arguably say, that yes, Felix is the second best indoor player on tour. However, Djokovic, when was the last time, Djokovic played a big tournament indoors?
Right.
But that's a different conversation. Yeah.
It's been a while.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, like, that's kind of where we stand. And it's obviously important to note Felix going out early in Australia. It gives him a little bit more time to kind of prep for this run. And Montpellier, it's kind of the same thing as last year, right? Like, you're playing Kovacevic in the final. Like, this year you're playing Minaur in the final. You just don't really know what draw you're going to get in Montpellier. And
the draw this year was a lot stronger, right, than last year.
Yeah, and his run, I would say, like, I mean, it was probably equal in that sense. Like,
but the opportunity that he could have run into a bigger opponent was
100%.
Even if Hurkacz, found some sort of rhythm, with the way, if he had played Hurkacz from United Cup, it's a big test. But obviously Hurkacz didn't turn up, got beat first round by Dam. So
right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, just looking at the run, right? It's Poppy Rin, who obviously is on such a struggle bus, so you're not getting much. But he was he was holding throughout. But you just get to the pressure points, and Felix was plenty more confident. You run into Mijotovic, who you never really know what you're going to get. But yeah, it was tight once again until the pressure points, and Felix prevailed. And then it's Griekspoor, who kind of understands that home crowd pressure. I didn't feel like he was all there mentally. I feel like he feels the pressure a little bit more even in Rotterdam, especially in these like latter years. I would say like previous editions of Rotterdam, he was playing a little bit more freely, maybe hitting the backhand a bit better. I remember a couple points in that tiebreak against Felix this week where he was trying to flatten out the backhand and like really go back behind Felix, and it just wasn't happening for him. So I mean, and then Bublik, right? Essentially a walkover. So it's just like doing the job that's in front of you, playing the pressure points big, holding serve, staying out in front, and he did all of that. So for me, go ahead.
You can't fault him for what he does, right? But you can only play what's in front of you, and that's what he does, right? Indoors, he does it so well that he sees who he plays, and he just he plays how he wants to play. Doesn't let many things deter him. Even when he played Sinner, he was still playing his way. And this is what he does. The draw might not be the biggest test, but there are guys that are ranked, from 10 to 20 or 25 that, he kind of puts away, in 2 tight sets and moves on consistently. So that's what he does really well on this surface.
Totally. I think it's fair. We'll give a couple more quick notes on ADM. I mean, like for me, I came into this week probably being like, yeah, like this is his week. This is, one of those tournaments where he gets that opportunity to get a title and gets it done and kind of not necessarily cements, but like gets himself going, especially in February, like put himself in the top 10 conversation and like kind of solidify that, right? Like don't put too much pressure on yourself kind of going forward, but get that big title done pretty early with. And now you like got some confidence to go off of heading into the Masters. I would say like the run, like we talked about, like Botic being like the hardest opponent, but like Humbert, like you never really want to play Humbert indoors, right?
No.
I know the surface wasn't as like advantageous for Humbert. It wasn't as slick as other indoor courts, but 6-1, 6-4 or 6-4, 6-1 is like a pretty it's a pretty good beatdown. And I just feel like it's important for us to like highlight how deadly ADM is on these pressure points. Like he just refuses to miss. The defense is awesome, and he just makes the court smaller. And so yeah, that's just like kind of my last wrap up on him. Go ahead.
No, for sure. Yeah, the court looks. Yeah, obviously we've never played Minaur, but the ability to shrink the court he's probably the second best next to Alcaraz, and obviously in terms of making the court as possible. Also just as I say, slightly slower conditions means he can get to every single ball. Obviously it's not as slow as Paris was ridiculously slow this year, but I think he just he was the top seed this week. We know how good he is at beating players that are ranked lower than him, and he proves it yet again. I mean, his backhand we know is his best shot, but just pointing towards the forehand today, actually 3 unforced errors is a great number for his weaker shot, you would say. So just not breaking down at all in any point in the match was just so key today. And obviously Felix wasn't at his best, but you can, as we said with Felix, we have to give the same to ADM. You can only play what's in front of you.
Right. Now looking back at the draw, any other names that come to mind? I feel like Bublik, like it's crazy to say like we're in 2026, but the guy he should tear up in these conditions. And despite him not going past the second round in Rotterdam in previous editions, he got it done here. I mean, he's a top 10 player, right? Like he found a way over the hump, especially against Minaur, who on these grittier courts, I thought it would be kind of a.
You would think it's like
at least,
perfect for him, right?
yeah, especially like a Bublik who's not all there. But I think he kind of got riled up throughout the match, right? Like once it
Yeah,
got to a third, he went down a break, and then he kind of felt like he needed to reassert himself back into the match. And that's a positive sign if you're a tennis fan, because you know, previous versions of Bublik would just kind of be willing to let the match just go
yeah.
away. But shout out to him. Another name that maybe on the concerning side, but once again, like when we're talking about these conditions, and we were even talking about it earlier in the week, like Minaur is like, he's tough in these indoor conditions, and he took down Karen Khachanov, who, you know, kind of feel like he needs a resurgence, you know, something to get his momentum going again.
Yeah. Karen just hasn't. I don't know. It's interesting with Karen. Obviously, had such big points to defend back end of last year. Had title in Almaty.
Almaty, yeah.
Yeah, final in Vienna and then semi-final in Paris. Didn't back up any of those. So I think he actually lost first round of all of them, or close to something like that. So that must have been a real kick in the teeth for him. And he just hasn't found himself yet again. We know how good he can be, especially in these conditions, but just wasn't there. Minaur is tricky, right? But you would think Khachanov's, you know, kind of prowess at this point, you know, he's been around for a long time, and he should be able to, you know, find a way through, even though Minaur is playing so well, and he just didn't.
Yeah. So that's Rotterdam. I don't think there's anything else for us to talk about in that draw. So let's move on to Buenos Aires, who it was the first time for Franz Cerundolo takes home the title in his third chance, right? This is his third time in a final. 2026 is the year for Franz Cerundolo winning a clay court title at home, and he takes down, you know, we'll be having conversations, but Luciano Darderi, who is such a tough out on clay courts, even if we think back to last year, right, without saying much, Darderi did he take down Greek Spore? And
yeah.
I'm blanking on it.
Yeah,
in
Marrakesh.
Thank you, Marrakesh. And then guess what he does? He does the clay court double, Nordea Bastad. Is that correct? I'm saying that off the bat, but just like Bublik, they did the clay court double. So, I mean, if you're looking at this draw, they were the 1 and 2 seeds respectively, but definitely the two best clay quarters here in this draw, deserving final. But it was Fran who was just a little bit more efficient on it. And for me, like coming into this match, I feel like there's so much scar tissue in the previous editions, especially last year versus Fonseca, losing a deciding tie break. I was like, okay, how is Frank going to kind of address himself and show himself in the match? But he was just on it, right? Darderi was making a lot more errors, never really found his footing. And the first strike tennis just wasn't good enough from Darderi today. So definitely a shout out to Fran for being the top seed in the draw, understanding he's at home, feeling the pressure, but getting it done.
Yeah. I'm just going to hone in on something very quickly. This is the first time in a long time that we've had 3 different tournaments and all 3, the first and second seeds, have made the final.
I actually didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's a bit of a crazy stat that it's been so long. I don't know exactly how long, but I know it's been years that we've had 3 tournaments and all of the 1 and 2 seeds have come through. Yeah, as you said, Darderi's, is very heavy on this first strike tennis, especially on a clay court, right? And as soon as he starts missing 1 or 2 balls that he would not miss, on a different day, things unravel. There you go. 44 years. There you go.
So it's definitely not happening next week.
No. And things start to unravel very quickly for Luciano. And Cerundolo is the type of player that will not let you get away with that for sure. The guy has, he would have seen today as an opportunity to make up for the last 2 times that he's made the final and not come through, especially last year against Fonseca, where, that is brutal. This guy's, 18 years old. He's just come onto the tour and he scrapes past you to win the title, his first title in your backyard. That's going to hurt, right?
Yep.
Comes back, plays almost flawless. The first set was deceptively tricky. Saved 2 break points at 4-3 for Darderi to break back, and from that point, from then looked forward and was so good from then on. Double break in the second, and Darderi wasn't landing as much of a heavy second that he usually likes to throw in, especially on the clay. Loves to throw in the kicker out wide. But just wasn't as big as you'd think today from Darderi. And when it was just missing. It was just one of those days. Obviously, we know his prowess on a clay court. 3 titles all on clay last year. I think he was joint with Bublik for most titles in a year outside Sinner and Alcaraz. So I actually think he had joint. No, obviously not. Sorry, I'm thinking of something completely different. Third most titles joint with Bublik with 3, I think. So yeah.
And you make a great point. Like for Darderi, I'd say like the turmoil in his head, as you say, if things aren't going his way, like the guy is this, he can crash out, as our favorite host John Silk saw straight up in Marrakesh. It was early. It was against Gaston. He'll be laughing when John hears this, but yeah, it was against Gaston. I remember. I think it was maybe round 2 or round 3 in Marrakesh, and everything was going wrong. And he's throwing his racket, he's screaming. I think he dropped the first set, maybe like 6-1 or 6-2, but was able to regather himself and start playing the tennis that he's capable of. So for Darderi, it's just about overcoming the emotions, but also it's like a little bit of an interesting situation here with having the Argentinian roots. He was like the type of guy that made that switch to represent the Italian flag, and thought that would be better for his career, and having his father as his coach and having those roots there. So definitely like a little bit more, there's like some history entwined in that match, but yeah, very well respected for both of these opponents. They had to come through. Like there was no easy win in this draw. That's kind of like my favorite thing about the Golden Swing. I know like some people are kind of angry about like, how is Rio a 500 and how does it get that sake, whereas Del Rey is a 250 and the names are popping off the chart. So for me, it's just like a different atmosphere. It's a different sort of environment that these guys have to play through. And man, it's heavy clay. In Buenos Aires, one of the slowest tracks on tour. So when you just kind of go through the draw, like there's no easy out. You have to play to your standard. And I think it's like a different approach from us as tennis fans, understanding that, okay, we're off the hard courts, right? Like they're gonna face some pressure on their serve. It's not gonna be just like a hold situation. And so everyone has to go through these moments where they're facing, pressure on their serves and finding ways to make it happen. And Fran, to be fair and to his credit, didn't go through those like kind of tough times. He didn't drop a set this week, but even back to his second round, as he got a bye, but against Delian, right? He goes bagel in the first set, and then he has to play. Delian was saving all these break points, and he ends up forcing a breaker, and Fran's able to take it 8-6. Like these things are very, they're very tight, and so I think it's fun for us as tennis fans to go back to like a little bit of a transition in surface, but just seeing like all these like insane clay quarters go at it. A lot of Argentines, obviously, in Buenos Aires. So definitely well deserved, but it's all about like how you get there, continuing to stack, the forehand working, really putting pressure on Darderi to hit his backhand more than probably he wanted to, and that's frustrating in and of itself. Trying to kind of nestle Darderi into his backhand corner, and then from there, like you're not able to play as much aggressive tennis, as we talked about. And then it was Fran like mixing in the drop shot, very timely, and got him off his mark. So for me, like a very well-deserved title. And I also wanted to mention, I know I've gone on a rant, but this is like, it was kind of like from this time on, I'm not remembering off the top of my head how Fran did in Rio last year, but from the final last year to maybe like late May after Roland Garros, maybe because he lost to Diallo early in Roland Garros, but this was Cerundolo's like best 3-month stretch of his career last year. If you remember, he was the one that finally got him to his highest ranking, which is 18th.
Yeah. Just seeing there that Cerundolo lost to Müller last year in Rio. Yes. Darderi with 15 winners, 29 unforced errors today is not a number he'll want to look at specifically. Just with how he plays his tennis, right? And especially on a clay court. We were talking about that first strike tennis. That is what he wants to do. And when he starts missing, it's, even if it's by, millimeters, it doesn't matter on the board. It's a point. And for him, he doesn't see it that way. He sees it, as a way that it's, it's slipped by and it frustrates him and it gets under his skin. And that's probably the thing that he would like to look at, when he has some time to think about how he, this sort of tennis, he knows it's big risk, big reward, right? And he has to see that. So, how he deals with that is a different a different circumstance. But for Cerundolo, it's more, this is like a career title, hometown, home country, and he's been in the final. This is the third time in the final. Finally gets over the line. This one will feel very good, and he showed it. Showed the emotion. When he won, when he got over the line, what it meant to him, and that was great to see. Cerundolo is far and away the best all-court Argentinian player on tour by a country mile, and he represents so much for his hometown. Thank you, producer. And he represents so much for Argentinian tennis. It was just a great moment for him. Cerundolo.
Well, Furious, I'll cut you off there because I feel like we're kind of getting into that conversation. Like, does Cerundolo have top 10 talent? As I mentioned, it was in May of 2025 when he reached his career high of 18. He, as you mentioned, best all-court player from Argentina. Do you think he has top 10 potential?
You're asking me a tricky question.
It's I think it's a realistic conversation.
I know it is, for sure,
especially like going forward. Like, he's shown that he can play on grass. What was it, Eastbourne 2 years ago? Like,
Eastbourne 2 years ago. Yeah, the only one that Fritz hasn't won in the last 27 years.
Right, exactly.
It's
and Miami. He always plays well. I saw it with my own eyes last year, taking down Tommy Paul handily. Like,
no. When he wins, when he's got a title on a hard court, then we can start really talking about top 10. I'm thinking top 15 for now. Let's say he puts together some serious results towards Roland Garros, makes quarters. Top 15 is firmly 12, 13. We have the thing is, when you see 10 to 25, you think any guy could be ranked 11, right? Any single one of those guys could be, ranked 11, even, inside the top 10. So puts together a big run somewhere, whether it's Miami or even Indian Wells. Indian Wells, maybe not so much, but just considering with the altitude and the height that the ball gets up to, but we'll see. Maybe 12, 13, and then if he makes quarters of Roland Garros, even though semis, let's dream a little. Top 10 for sure.
No, it's on the cusp, and I even think back to Djokovic, Roland Garros quarterfinal 2024, where the match is arguably his, and a couple big points didn't go his way, and things steamrolled in the wrong direction. But yeah, I mean, he's one of those players that I think he has the ground game to beat anyone. And as our producer mentions, like, you think about like the Demon, for example. Yeah, Demon fights a little bit harder. He's obviously a much better defender, but you even think back to like any like sort of hardcore matchup between those two. Like Fran has the bigger ball striking, but I think the like the matchup that comes to mind is a Australian Open in 24, I think it was, for those two. And Fran pushed him, but it wasn't good enough. So with that being said, like, I think it's a good conversation to have, and we'll see kind of how it goes throughout the year. But looking back at this draw, not many more I want to talk about, but probably Tabio is one that I do want to mention, because that was a good showing from Tabio, taking down Fonseca in that first round. Had a little bit of a crowd. It got feisty towards the end, and Tabio was able to break Fonseca at 5-6 and take the match. Anything from him that you saw that, you know, impressed you, gave you any hope, or maybe the other side?
Tabilo is an interesting case. We know he has the game to play top level. That run in Rome, 24 Rome, beat Djokovic, made quarters, semis. Semis, I think. Even was a break. It was a setup on Zverev, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Sounds right.
We know he has the game. You know, kind of burst onto the scene 24 Auckland when he beat Shelton and then won the title there, if I'm not much mistaken. But yeah, it was a setup on Zverev. Did remember that correctly. But we just his ability on a clay court has. We know how good it is, but it's faded in the last couple of years along with his overall form. And kind of thought he might be back when he won Hangzhou.
Yeah, against Musetti.
Yeah, against Musetti late last year, but kind of hasn't kicked on from there. Feel as though he hasn't really, punched a hole in his ranking in what he would have wanted to after he won that title. And now it's kind of, he sat in this area where, Buenos Aires was a great way of him to really, reinstate himself, has Santiago in a couple of weeks. The forehand is big, but the serve needs work. The serve needs work for him to really kind of in these conditions, really, take it to Cerundolo or, Baez or, Darderi, but he's like on the fringes again. He's that group of 3 or 5 players that could easily make the semis in Rio.
I agree. Quick mentions. I mean, Thomas Martin Echeverry, seeing that transition, won an absolute marathon. It was against Burchaga, 3 hours, 40 minutes. Good to see him performing on home soil. And Sebi Baez, the Golden Swing King. He wasn't able to get it done, lost that tiebreak against Darderi, and from there it was tough sledding. But good for him to get to a semi. As we mentioned, I mean, like one of the hottest players in 2026 so far. So knowing him, he's going to be a tough out in Rio and the rest of the Golden Swing. But I think that wraps up our Buenos Aires coverage.
I just want to talk about Fonseca for a second.
Sure. Oh, yeah, definitely. A conversation to be had.
There's been so much feedback online about how Fonseca is overrated and how, we need to, dial back expectation. I think everyone just needs to pump the brakes and just realize that the kid is still a teenager and that his ceiling is so massive, right? Ceiling is huge, and he could easily, make top 20 by end of the year. By Roland Garros, could easily make top 20 by Roland Garros if he is fully fit and if he is firing, right? But just because he's had an injury and he's trying to come back from a big injury, doesn't mean we should start thinking that he's not a good tennis player anymore, because he is. The amount of comments I see on people's on Twitter about, oh, Fonseca is like so bad now, and it's like the guy's coming back from injury, cut him some slack, okay? Yeah, Tabilo is not an easy comeback at all by any means. So just give him a little bit of time. Obviously, home tournament. I think it's better for him to have done it this way round now. He last year won Buenos Aires and then was absolutely gassed for Rio. Kind of good that he had some match practice in Buenos Aires and now is pumped for Rio. We know made quarters in 24, lost to Navone in 3, but was gassed that match, like completely looked. So we know how good he is. Just give him a little bit of time and some match practice.
Agreed. And I think that's like a worthy note because, I mean, looking at his season, right? He's played 2 matches in 2026. Like, what sort of conversations are we having? And yes, we, if you're a true tennis fan, you watch that match against Missouri, nowhere close to being all there. And then obviously, like the strides were there, and I think defending your title for the first time is obviously like a little bit more pressure. For all we know, like maybe it was good for him to rest another week. But regardless, as you mentioned, last year was really, really tough, especially going home, super fatigued, going against an Alexander Mueller who was just insane, didn't miss a ball, was an absolute physical freight train who ends up going to the final, losing to Baez. So we're looking at that matchup being like, it's a fine loss. It's a fair loss. But yeah,
no, for sure.
For me, it's like how we're trying to just gauge his health, right? Like I'm hearing more about the back problems. He had a chronic back injury, kind of similar to Arthur Fees. Obviously concerning, but these athletes, like they've been with physios since they were 16. They have good teams behind them and understand that like when the time is right to play and when it wouldn't be. So I think he's okay. He's finding a way to manage. And as you mentioned, like I think, yes, he went out early here, but on the flip side, he gets to go to Rio. He's been practicing there already and hopefully a little bit more fresh. So hoping for a exciting run in Rio for João Fonseca. Anyway, moving on to our third tournament this week. It was Dallas, the indoor conditions in Dallas, just the second year of this edition where they hold it in the Dallas Cowboys practice facility in Frisco, Texas. These courts they play on the medium side, but definitely slick, definitely a little bit slick. And
quicker than Rotterdam for sure.
For sure. And that was tailored to the first and second seeds, Taylor Fritz and Ben Shelton. And it is big Ben Shelton who comes through in a 3-set epic in a sense against Fritzy. 3-6, 6-3, 7-5, where Ben Shelton, he was up a break in the third very early. And he gave it back and it got very, very tense, especially at 4-5, 15-40, when Ben Shelton had to save 2 match points and he played them superbly. I remember the second one where he took the backhand back behind Fritz. Just what a gutsy shot. And that's really Ben Shelton in a nutshell, especially like the growth of him. He doesn't play with fear. And well, in some cases it doesn't work out for you, but that's kind of an approach that I think is good in the 2026 era of tennis, playing with a lot less fear, going for your shots, being more confident, and it paid off for him today.
Yeah, and this kind of sums up Shelton entirely, right? His entire game. How does he find the ability to be so aggressive but controlled at the same time whilst facing, championship points? I'd like to just point out, you were talking about that second match point. I'd just like to point out that his third championship point that he saved, it was, Fritz was there. He had, but Ben comes in off the ball, hits a really, really good volley, forces Fritz to, find an angle or find a pass that just isn't on. And he covers the net so well on big points. It was it was great to see, and it kind of just it sums up. I say again, sums up Shelton's game entirely. That he comes in on big points and he plays it so well with such aggression, but but controlled aggression where in previous years that the aggression may not be so controlled.
Yeah, that's true. Mess around with your mic a little bit as we carry on. But
sorry,
yeah, I mean,
I was just
there we go. Perfect.
We're good. My flatmates were being quite loud, so
beautiful. We're good. But yeah, I mean, I just think like it's just showing like the development, and also, as I'm saying, just like the fearless factor that Shelton has. It's a kind of a risk reward play, right? It's almost like, are you going to go for 2 second serves or 2 first serves on your serve? And Shelton's one of those players who, just finds a way. But I will highlight, and I think this is like the name of the week for Shelton, is the defense, like his capability, especially with the slice. Like even in some of those like bigger points in the third set, like he's moving on a slice to the Fritz backhand just to like kind of see and vary it up a bit. But then it's Shelton defending out of his backhand corner, extending the point, making Fritz go for a little bit more. And I feel like that paid dividends, especially as you got into that third set.
Yeah, I think this is it's Shelton's improvement in defense is night and day from this time last year. The guy is now tricky to hit past. His movement and his footwork intensity, has increased so much that he becomes tricky to hit through. But he's kind of moving like Berrettini with the backhand slice, and how he's just trying to hit it every single defensive point, because we all know that Shelton's big hole in his game that's still there is that backhand return. He doesn't hit it consistently enough, and he doesn't get what he wants out of it so far. But he returns to the slice there, and it works. But in terms of the serve today, it was the first time I've seen in quite a while Ben confident to hit those big second serves. It was 30 love. He was serving for it and hit a 1:26 second serve down the tee. And Fritz is not going to get anywhere near that. And it was so good to see. But Fritz was frustrated with how he couldn't hit through Shelton, and maybe Fritz was lacking a bit of clarity of thought, no drop shot that he could have had. Fritz had the drop shot there, but it wasn't executed, and Shelton takes it. But a second 500 for Shelton, a 4th title of his career. Obviously won Toronto last year, but this is another big win. Even though it it's just maybe a statement that he's come in for that US #1 spot.
Totally. A statement? That's a really good way to put it, because looking at this run, man, it was impressive. You obviously had Diallo, who I think is kind of on a struggle bus a bit, so it was a good way to start your tournament. Although he did have to save 3 break points in that first service game of his tournament. He could have been down an early break. But that goes exactly to what I'm about to say, because this guy, he played his last 4 matches, all 3 sets, 3 of them, aka quarters, semis, finals, came back from a set down. Like, this guy was a slow starter a bit out of the gate, and that's just credit to Shelton, like the maturity in his game, understanding that, it might not start out okay, but when you get to kind of reset in that second set, you get to serve first, scoreboard pressure, and then you start to kind of work your way into the match. That's what I see as one, development, maturity, and also just comfortability, like understanding that like it's okay. It's not going to come down to a few points with me. Yeah, he probably got into more service trouble than I thought he would, especially on this surface. But I think he struggled here last year too. It's like kind of just like an interesting surface, but
lost to Minaur.
Exactly. So like it's just like slow starter, but the guy found a way to work himself into the match and really just prevail. Like I even think that Chapo match, that break point that he had to face at 5-all last night, it was played with like real confidence. And I think you made also a great point about Fritz being frustrated that like he can't hit through Shelton. Like I think that's like a tough part for these players now who, yeah, 2024, maybe even a little bit of 2025, Ben Shelton, like you're going to get some loose errors. You're going to win a lot more baseline rallies. Whereas 2026 and kind of just what we've seen at the back end of 25, like this guy's ground game, his defense, everything is like continue to build on itself. And I really just, he's a problem, as you said, going for that number one American spot.
Yeah, and the ability to, well, maybe not the ability. Sorry, I'm thinking about a different point. But Shelton is far more polished than he was. I was talking to you specifically about, there's quite a bit of discourse about Shelton and Draper. Obviously, Draper is out of the picture at the moment, and how they match up and they compare. And I look at their Indian Wells match, the only match they've ever played against each other, unfortunately, last year, where Draper obviously won. And we were talking afterwards, and you, in your words, you said that Draper is so much more polished than Shelton. And I feel now that we have a 95% polished figure of Ben Shelton on the ATP Tour. Now, in terms of when he plays Djokovic, where he plays Sinner and Alcaraz, I feel as though he is a kind of a different player when he plays those two. He just has a game that doesn't step up when he has to play the big two. And when he finds the way to step up when he plays those two, then he's going to become a real trouble, especially with how he serves bigger than both of them. And, arguably has a, just as big as of a forehand as Sinner. But the backhand is obviously something that needs a bit of work. But we're looking at a nearly polished Shelton in terms of, looking at a year ago where, we were looking at a 70% polished player. But Shelton too good. I really thought Chapo was going to do the double with how good he was playing this week. Chapo kind of just goes crazy every once in a while and reminds everyone how good at tennis he is. Reminds everyone of that Rafa match in Montreal in 17. But yeah, Ben too good. Big Ben too good.
Big Ben. Yeah, I think the point you make, and as you said, like we had this conversation, we'll keep having it, but I think like it was like 6 months ago, whatever. It's like that word polished. And when you think about like polished in tennis, I'm thinking about your ground game from both wings. How can you deliver at net? How are you on serve? It's just like really like the whole compass of your game and the assets that you possess. And Shelton, like he has it, man. Like obviously the serve, the second serve are so big. He's aggressive enough when he gets the net. He's really confident there. And then it's like, how can you deal with like backhand and pressure situations? And like, I think this week, like he really showed that he's confident and he believes in himself. And now he's working in the slice. Like, it's just really difficult. So I'll pose this to you, Fergus. Like, is there a reason why he's not that third guy that we're talking about that shouldn't, like, he should be there? When we think about Musetti, ADM, obviously Draper, it's hard to talk about when we haven't seen enough of him in the last 6 to 9 months. But I think Shelton deserves to be in that conversation. He hasn't really been brought up.
I think that he absolutely is in this conversation. I've said this so many times on this channel that it's Draper, Shelton, and Fils, and then you have a small gap, and then it's Musetti, ADM, Zverev, whoever you want to put in that as the chasers. Take Draper out of the equation at the moment because he's not playing. They are the chasers. Now the problem is, because you could say this, Ben's 3-set form. Ben's 3-set form is far and away weaker than his 5-set form. We've seen him in terms of losses last year, had a couple losses you cannot have if you want to chase Sinner and Alcaraz. You know, Alcaraz obviously had a few of his own last year, you know, Goffin, Lehechka, Norrie. But you cannot lose, you know, those sorts of matches, which last year he was doing, and then obviously won the title in Toronto. Then unfortunately gets injured, which is, you know, not great. Was kind of on a roll at the US Open, you know, lost to Manarino. But when Ben's now fixed his 3-set form for the most part, okay. What he does at Indian Wells is, you know, going to be interesting. Miami, he should be very good, but obviously lost to Wong first round last year, so not defending any points there actually. Just needs to put more runs together in Masters than he has been doing previously. And I think we'll see a better, you know, ranking for him, you know, somewhere around that 5 mark, potentially by Monte Carlo. But then it gets tricky for what he does on the clay. You know, didn't really have a big result on the Masters on the clay, but obviously made the 4th round of Roland Garros. But it was his 3-set form. Now it's not. It's more about how he performs in the Masters, but we'll see.
Yeah, and the producer does make the important point, and it's something that I left out in kind of my polished resume, but it's the return.
That's the 5%. That's the 5% for me. The return is the 5%.
And it does make or break matches, because like if you add that element, man, he's really tough to beat, but you're still seeing it. And that's why this draw in his matches, 4 out of the 5 go 3 sets, because guys are willing to, you know, push him a bit and get a lot out of their serve. They're able to play a little bit more freely on their return games. But yeah, I mean, that was like a big test. So let's quickly go through the run, and then we'll carry on to maybe someone else or highlight a few other players in the Dallas draw. But like Manarino, just always a tough cookie for Shelton to crack, and had to do it again, right? Ends up going 3 sets. Ben has to play big, and he gets it through. And then you play Kecmanovic, who probably shouldn't have been there, but
you never ever want to see. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say this now. You never ever want to see Kecmanovic next to your name. Like, the guy is so tricky to read. He's either so good, like ridiculously good, or he's like so off the boil, and there's no in between. So you just never want to see him. But quickly on Manarino,
go for it.
Great decision from him to go Dallas instead of Rotterdam. Could have been super easy to go Rotterdam and switch from Montpellier to Rotterdam, which obviously a bit of a difference.
Because of travel time, or?
Well, yeah, because of travel time. But in terms of court condition and similarity of court condition, good decision to switch to Dallas, and he proved it, you know. Pushed Shelton all the way pretty much.
Right. So, I mean, yeah, as you mentioned with Kecmanovic, like the guy's an all-quarter, right? You just don't know when he's going to show up, and he was feeling the ball really well, especially off that Tommy Paul match. But Chapo, as you mentioned, like the guy is just God here in Dallas. Loves these conditions, felt really good about himself, won that first set, and then like put plenty of pressure on Ben, but just wasn't able to crack him. And that's another guy who just a little bit boomer bust on return, and that's kind of the risk reward you play with that game style, but wasn't good enough. Fritzy, any quick comms on Fritzy? I think for me, it's like this guy like always tells me he has an injury. I just don't know how to gauge him, because he is so honest with the media. One of our members and head of Tennis One, Vanch, was there giving him questions, and I respect Fritz because he loves talking about the sport, loves kind of the IQ side of it, but he's always honest with his injuries and talking about the oblique that was kind of bothering him previously, but he's able to manage it. Then it's the arthritis in the knee, which wasn't as big of a factor. But then it's yesterday against Korda, or it was Friday against Korda, when the elbow starts flaring up, and you're thinking, okay, is he going to retire? Elbow, Del Rey next week. But no, the guy prevails. He powers through and finds himself in a final again, and had 3 match points, championship points.
Just Fritz is a tricky one. Fearless, though, he's almost so open about his injuries that it's almost like he's so open that we don't know.
Exactly.
Right? He's so open that we just don't know it, like whether he's like what he's gonna do or like what he's gonna say next. And like it's like we could mic him up on the tennis court and we still wouldn't know, right? We could we'll be disappointed that he didn't convert the match points today, but credit to Shelton how he played them. But Fritz he's never gonna surprise you, Fritz. He's always got the same sort of game and he's super consistent. That backhand is like it's so punchy and keeps low on the court, doesn't tend to, give it any height or, vary it up. But you were mentioned about, how he's so open with the media and the IQ that he has. I think it was ATP finals this year, he was talking about return position with Musetti.
Correct.
That kind of opened everyone's eyes to how he really, he reads the game and loves to, speak on the game. In terms of this week, Fritz, just top seed, expected to get to the final, made the final, did well against Korda, and against Cilic, actually. Cilic was a very tricky customer this week. Could have easily actually taken the title. We know how good Cilic has been, we'll talk about Cilic in a second, I'm sure, but made a 68th career semi-final, which is just a crazy stat.
Yeah, I mean, we could go a lot of places with this draw because it just felt like from the quarterfinals on, like it was kind of for me, like I don't know where it's going to go. Like, for example, if Foki wins that match against Chapo, and I felt like that was tough on him, he kind of derailed as that match went on and almost lost hope, which I didn't think was like necessary, but you are playing a Chapo that just fires away. And
yeah.
But, then it's like Foki in that lefty righty matchup where I thought he would have like done well. And given that everyone's taking a set off Shelton this week, who knows from there. And on the flip side, as you mentioned, Fritz Cilic, like for me, it was kind of inevitable that they were going to two breakers and who was going to play more clutch. But Cilic, like these were like so perfect of conditions. It's almost, I'm not even going to compare it to grass, but like it was slick enough and kind of medium enough where you had time to load up on the ground strokes, but also the backhand, like he just hits it so much through the court. I think it's definitely fair in our ATP Weekly to highlight his 600th win on tour. It's just crazy, especially as us, like young guys, like living in a different era. I guess we're in the synchronized era, right? I can't say anything else.
And it was kind of fitting that it was Tien that was his victim for number 600, right?
Oh, that was odd.
Change of generation and showing that he can still do it. And it wasn't. Well, I might be. He was asked recently, about the strength of the top 10 today compared to like, how it was back when he was, playing in, the most of his tennis, and he was saying he was just like the consistency outside of the four in Murray, Nadal, Federer, Djokovic, Berdych, Tsonga, Soderling, Wawrinka, the list is kind of endless, and it was, he speaks so well and he's such a likable guy, and that back, I really am a big fan of the backhand and how he swings it through the court. It's like he's actually playing a golf shot or a cricket shot, with how far that backswing is. But he's it's
vicious.
It is, and that's why that's why he beat Draper. In at Wimbledon, he's dead on these sorts of courts.
And a name that I honestly forgot about when you go out first round and we're doing these recaps, sometimes the names get lost. But Lerner Tien, not his best showing, but once again, like totally a fair result on these courts, these conditions. I think he'll find a way to bounce back in Del Rey, slower courts, dealing with the wind. So that's something to see. Tommy Paul, good showing. Probably should have found himself in a duel with Shelton. He just kind of squandered 2 break points there in the tail end of that second against Ketchma, and the match was flipped on its head. Mikkelsen, kind of the same old. Did get past Grigor in a tight 3 sets, but wasn't able to do it against Foki. And Jack Pennington Jones makes a little bit of a run in an ATP 500, playing in his college home state as he went to Texas Christian University, TCU, the Horned Frogs. And then we got Korda, Tiafoe, kind of the same story with both these guys. Like, at a point, it becomes like, are you going to show up? Are you going to, test the top Americans? And these are guys that have the ability. It's just like, you got to show up to the test. I think I'll focus more on Korda for me. Like, had so many openings against Fritz. I think he had, if you were to go from the second set on, I think he had 3 opportunities where he had love 30 on the Fritz serve, and just not good enough, right? Like, when you see your chances, you have to take advantage of him. And I think that these guys, especially on this surface, I just feel like this was a ball striker's paradise. And it's definitely something that Korda should like really, really squeeze at, because like these opportunities, they don't come very often. And for him struggling, like, you have to take advantage. So any of those names that I threw out, feel free to throw a little insight on, and we'll carry on.
I think I just wanna talk about Tiafoe, quickly.
Sure.
The guy has a fresh start this year. Like, has pretty much nothing to defend. Usually we talk about Tiafoe peaking for 2 months of the year. Yep. When we go for Toronto, Cincinnati, and or Montreal, I guess, and Cincinnati and US Open. Didn't do it last year. Got rid of his coaching staff, brings in, new faces, new takes, new ideas. You said, I think it was you on Twitter, let's start with that return position, as a just a quick starter for some things, right? And the guy is still playing exactly the same. Like, the guy hasn't changed a thing. And I think it's time that he really has to sit down and go, you know what, I just need, a reset. Maybe he does a bootlick. Maybe he goes to LA. Not LA, sorry. He goes to
Vegas, yeah.
Vegas, sorry. Yeah. He goes to Vegas for 3 days, blows off some steam, comes back with a fresh perspective. But I don't know. It's tough for Tiafoe. Needs to keep grinding. I always think in this situation that we have such little that we can say, because we don't know what's going on in their lives and how they're perceiving their game. But, you just feel something's got to change. Whether it's, I don't know what it is, but something's got to happen. And
I will say one thing that I do know, Fergus, is that he dropped his entire team and got himself a fresh start for 2026. He grabbed, I think it was Alex. No. Kovacic took his old coach. But regardless, like, he did make changes, and as you say, like, that return position always frustrates me, because it's not enough to play boomer bust tennis on break points every now and then. It's like, you have to find some sort of rhythm, and that's what's frustrating for me, because he has all of that ability. He has the sort of torpedo backhand that is perfect for this surface.
Yeah.
And it's just like, really, a double break in the second set after losing a set 7-5. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. Like,
yeah, I'm just trying to think about, like, his form recently. Like, the only, is, he has a good 5-set record, right? His 5-set record is good, right? But in recent years, it's been a real struggle. Wimbledon lost to Nori round 2. US Open, made round 3, I think. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but things that usually fall into place for him just haven't, and it's tough, and he's got to keep grinding. I mean, Tien is kind of not having to do that much to be US number 3, right? And I mean, obviously, he makes quarters of AO and won his first title in Mets last year, but I don't know. Tiafoe, was consistently sat around that 10 to 13 area, and now he's at 28. Could easily drop out the seedings for Indian Wells if he doesn't do anything in Delray. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's the home soil that maybe frustrates me a bit more, because typically he's at his best in conditions that suit him properly. But yeah, I mean, when you understand that you're coming home after Australia, you got the Dallas, you got Delray, and then he'll go play Houston clay court. You got to find a way to lock in and really assert yourself, because for me, I feel like Korda was such it's not easy by any means, but Korda coming from San Diego Challenger, I don't know. I just think that you have to take the opportunities when they come, and that's something you shouldn't be afraid of. Just like you shouldn't be afraid of Alex de Minaur. I know it's in Australia, but going pound for pound, man, Tiafoe's got the goods, and I just think even in this coaching change, I haven't seen enough from Tiafoe in terms of changing different tactical things in his game, but also attitude on court. I know everyone's your friend, but you gotta assert yourself in a way, and that's something that I feel like has been lacking for way too long. And I'm talking more in that 16 months range. So
yeah,
that's that. I think we covered all the bases, Fergus, in all the tournaments.
Let's quickly, we're not going to delve into draws or anything like that.
Yeah.
I want 3 winners for next week. Delray, Doha, and Rio.
Let's do that. I'll pull up Doha right now. We got Alcaraz returning to play. And draw's not looking too bad on his side. So as much of a...
Sinner having Mahatch round 1 is kind of interesting. I quite like that.
Who's got Mahatch round 1?
Sinner.
Sorry. Sinner, yeah. Yeah, depending on the fitness, right? But yeah. I'll go. I mean, Doha's usually playing pretty slow. So I'm leaning. I'll go with Alcaraz there. Who are you going to go with?
Do I just play devil's advocate and go Sinner?
Okay.
It's only right. I guess so. I mean, I'm not going to say anyone else, am I? Yeah,
it's only right. No. Hey, my guy is in a main draw.
Yep. I'll go Sinner.
Rio, another just awesome draw. If you love clay court tennis, then
have you seen ready? Have you seen that? Oh my God, Prismic has Muller first round.
Ooh, did they just get placed as we're doing?
Yeah, okay, about 20 minutes ago.
Beautiful. That'll be tough, because Mueller's as much of a. I mean, our producer knows better than us, but Mueller seems like a kind of a no nonsense guy. He's kind of just he's straight up. He's competitive. But defending a title when you haven't had many titles in your career, that's going to be something really, really difficult to do, I would say. But
Cerundolo Navone round 1, that is grim.
I know, you got warfare here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think Darderi makes another run. I don't see why he doesn't find himself again in a final. I genuinely think we could see the same final, but
possibility. But I think Cerundolo's eventually going to run out of gas, right?
I'll go Sebi Baez.
I was going to go Baez.
Okay.
No. I'll go. I'll go.
Okay. I'll let you decide, Del Rey.
You know
How
what?
about that?
You know what? I will go. I'll go Altmaier just to throw things.
Why not? Hasn't done anything this year. Why not just
why not?
A little run.
Just throw it out there. And Delray. By the way,
you get first pick.
This is the most stacked Delray beach draw we've ever had in the history of Delray. Not gonna lie.
Yes.
I'm gonna go.
Very, very stacked 250 draw.
Oh yes, Chilich.
Casper Ruud is returning to play. That's very exciting.
Chilich Nakashima round 1 off the top of my head. Hodar. Quinn. That'll be a fun matchup. What was the other one I was looking at? Borges. Who was it? Borges Wong was the other one I was thinking of. But I'm gonna go winner this week. I'll go Tien.
Okay. And I'm gonna go Tommy Paul.
Tommy Paul. Mute Paul first round.
Mute Paul. Mute making the trip to Del Rey. I love it. I love it. Yeah, well, here we are, man. Gotta enjoy these tournaments. As I said, like these are just such fun weeks on tour.
Absolutely.
You're a tennis fan, like it just never stops. Add 5 challenger tournaments to it. Your brain will go crazy. Beautiful. Well, that is it from us. I want to thank everyone for joining us.
Thank you very
much. A lot
of
fun breaking it down. We're early in this 2026 season, but so many storylines to talk about. So that is that. Until next time, Fergus. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you, Brenna. Pleasure as always. Thanks, guys.
Exactly. Until next time, we will see you guys soon. Cheers.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.